Hey guys, how you doing? Just got off work, had a nice burrito, went and bought some booze, heading on home. I got 2 weeks vacation. Look at that, 2 weeks. That's all my vacation time for the year. I work in a toy store, so getting 2 weeks of vacation right before we're heading into Christmas sounds like a good idea to me. Christmas is going to be busy. We're going to be moving and moving. So, going to take these 2 weeks, relax, chill out. Maybe some of these videos will actually be calm for once. We'll see. The gluten-free thing, holy cow. Just try it. Cut gluten out of your diet. It's like completely changed my energy levels. I realize now that like people walking around are just like walking around like normal, you know? So let's get to it. What's banging around in my head? Lots of talk about climate change these days. It's what the United States election is turning into. It's what our next election is going to be about, without a doubt, here in Canada. Because the reality is the issue has become so pressing and has been ignored for so long by powerful individuals that we are going to enter like a hyper politicized period where every aspect of our lives is becoming politicized. Like everything is starting to be politicized. And there's movement happening here in Canada. The Trudeau government just announced similar legislation to what they've been doing in France, banning single-use plastics. You know, that kind of legislation that should have been pushed through maybe 10 years ago to have made any difference whatsoever. The reality is that we've ignored this problem for so long, and we've allowed sociopaths to take control of the levers of power for so long that what needs to happen is a more major transformation. And I think it's wonderful that people are saying, yeah, climate change, we need to focus on climate change, and climate change is what we're voting for, and there's climate change. And that here in Canada, there is only one party remaining that allows that kind of denialism, that allows climate change denialism to exist at all within its ranks. That's the Conservative Party, who is completely in thrall to corporate power and genuinely does not give a shit about human life. But the reality is that it's all going to be too tepid and it's all going to be too late, right? Like, I would be a bit more hopeful about the state of our politics and the state of our fight against climate change if the Conservative Party was gone. Like, if the Conservative Party was gone because no one took their positions seriously anymore and treated them like the sociopathic children that they are, then I would be much more hopeful. But the fact that there is a full third, like between 25 to 30% of the populace, still supporting a party which barely acknowledges that climate change is an issue at all, when it's literally like the Nazis are knocking on your door. They are kicking in your door. They're coming to steal your children. That's the level that I'm at. That's the level that everyone should be at. And I think that if you're not at that level, there's something wrong with you. Like, you have a mental illness. Like, you need to go seek professional help for this mental illness that you're suffering from. And the reality is I take a look at what the Trudeau Liberals have done. I think it's pathetic. I think that their actions are pathetic. Like, pathetic. Like, sure, they passed a CERB during the high point of the COVID crisis, which was the right thing to do, which they immediately backed off of, and immediately just passed these sort of tepid reforms to kind of keep the capitalist ball rolling, instead of seizing the opportunity to eliminate the capitalists from the conversation completely, just deleting them, which is what we should have done. And we could still do, but the Liberals are largely cowards and are really unable, like, they're really, really, truly unable to fully grasp and understand the absolute hellish shitstorm that is going to come our way if we don't do something very serious. And I'm talking very serious. Like, I rarely hear, like, people who criticize governments and people who criticize these sorts of things, they rarely put forward ideas, right? I'll put forward all kinds of ideas, right? We need to transition to a war economy. We need to ration energy. We need to completely shut down any fossil fuel producers, 100%. It needs to be done. And it needs to be done within 5 years. Like, maybe 10 years ago, I would have said 10 years. Now I'm saying 5 years. It needs to, like, grab the lever, and it needs to be over. And it needs to happen that quickly. Because we're talking about very serious ramifications at this point. We're not, and like, we can literally see it on the day-to-day now, right? Like, this last September was the hottest September we've recorded ever. And the next one's going to be hotter, and the next one's going to be hotter. This October is the hottest October that we are going to record. And it's just going to keep going that way, right? Because as we acidify the oceans, right, as we desertify the prairies, as we completely demolish the underpinnings of our society and of our ecosystem, like, and then what the absurdity of it is that there is going to be a tipping point where suddenly the consequences of our inaction and our stupidity are just going to come to bear against us. You know, we're going to, and there's just going to be a lot of people, a lot of conservatives, who are going to be like, oh, who could have seen it coming? Literally everyone else. Literally everyone else. Oh, who could have seen it coming? Oh, how could we have possibly known? Like, there's going to be tons of fucking total idiots walking around being like, oh, our leadership should have been blah, 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 blah. Like, it'll be like talking to kindergartners. Which is how we should talk to these conservatives in the first place. They're so illiterate and stupid. The people like Andrew Scheer, people like Aaron O'Toole, like, just fucking total babies. Just, like, never grew up past 6. Just never really stopped sucking their mom's tit. Just had their hand held their entire life. Don't actually know anything. Are illiterate. And we're supposed to treat these people as if they're important. Fuck them. Fuck these people. And, like, we have to start bracing for impact, guys. Like, we have to. There's just going to be power outages. There's just going to be periods of time where we're just not going to have access to power. We're going to have to start taking more seriously things like complete home renovations, right? Like, we have to start taking seriously the idea that we have to insulate our homes better, right? Things need to be warmer just at the core, right? We're not going to be able to say things like, we're just not going to be able to burn oil to heat our homes. It's just not going to happen. And we are not going to make the transition into wind, solar, any of that. The technological transition argument, if you're making that argument, you're delusional. You're a child. And it's time to wake up. It's time to be an adult, and it's time to start making decisions like an adult. Right? Like, it's time to pay the piper. Conservatives will always tell you all the time, like, how are you going to pay for that? How are you going to pay for that? Well, how are you going to pay for the damage that you've done to the ecosystem? How are you going to pay for that? Oh, oh, that'll only be a problem when you're dead. Well, then hurry up. Hurry up and die. Please. Quickly. Faster. Like, I have no love for these conservatives who are still, I vote conservative because I've always voted conservative and conservative. No. Hurry up and die. Please. Faster. Like, if your response to climate change as an issue is, oh, that'll only really be a problem when I'm dead, well, then hurry up, right? Because I consider it a problem now, and I would prefer to deal with it now when you're alive rather than waiting for you to die. But if you're going to be completely inert and worthless and pathetic and stupid until the moment you die, well then hurry up and die. Get out of the way. Just get out of the fucking way. But these stupid illiterate conservatives are just going to keep voting the way they vote because, I have a house and I want to keep things the way they are and I don't like taxes. If taxes are going to be the least of your concern, you stupid motherfuckers. Like it's going to be the least of your concerns when this shit starts happening, right? When you walk into the grocery store and you realize, man, bread is 10 times the price that it used to be. Shit. Oh man, buying a bag of flour, it costs 10 times more than it used to. Right? Like, why are food prices so high? It's because the land is desertified, you idiot. It's because less food is being produced, you stupid moron. Right? Like, we've been telling you this whole time. We've been telling you this entire time. And you're too stupid and illiterate and incapable of understanding and learning to understand it. Or to even attempt to understand it. Or to even to understand that it's a problem. Right? Instead, you're just continuously voting, not even against your own interest, but the interest of your own children, right? Like, think about that. Like, who has a child and brings a child into this world and then does everything they possibly can to absolutely decimate the ecosystem, to ensure, like, these are people who would, like, bend over backwards to make sure the economy was any good, even though they've completely salted the earth on that point. The economy is unsalvageable. It needs to be completely eliminated. But conceptually, they would say, like, of course I want the economy to work, and of course I do. But, breathable air, fuck that, right? Clean water, nah, fuck that. Arable land, fuck that. Who needs arable land? And, like, we are getting to a point now. So I take a look at the states, right? And the choice that they have forced themselves into, and that's really what it is that the American people have forced themselves into this choice. The choice really is between a fascist and who denies the existence of climate change and Joe Biden is basically a fascist. Like, I don't really have it, like, where's the distinction? I don't really see one. But he does at least acknowledge that climate change exists because his base acknowledges that climate change exists. Like, if Joe Biden's base was just like, nah, climate change, he would also be like, climate change. But the fact of the matter is that he does acknowledge that climate change exists. So perhaps, and that's really where they're at. They're just like, well, perhaps Joe Biden might do something maybe about it. Probably won't. But at least he acknowledges that it exists, right? My gut feeling, and the feeling that I really do have, is that it will take a revolution, an American revolution specifically, to actually move this ball. All the other nations of the world are moving forward, right? Even like China, Russia, the Euro Union, the African nations, Australia, Canada to the degree that it can, the Latin American nations, like, they're all moving forward on it, right? They're not, like, people shit on Venezuela because they're like, they have this enormous oil reserve and they're so poor and they're not using it. It's like, yeah, of course they're not using it. Why would they want to destroy themselves? What, they're not crazy like you, right? You're crazy. Like, if you're saying, like, that Venezuela should exploit its oil, so Venezuela should commit suicide. They should join the death cult and create a mass suicide, and that's what you're arguing for. Right? Instead, the Venezuelans are saying, no, sure, there's oil there. Sure. We're not going to exploit that. We're going to let that stay in the ground. We're going to let that stay in the ground. You know why we're going to let that stay in the ground? Because we don't want to die. We don't want our children to die. It's really simple. Like, it is really simple. It's so simple that it's embarrassing that anybody would fight against it at this point. Like, people will look back on the denialists and the people who fought against climate change, and they will just be like, what an embarrassment. What an embarrassment to humanity. Anybody who has stood up ever and has said, climate change is a big problem. Jordan Peterson said that. That was the moment that I was like, oh, this guy's insane. Like, I went from being like, oh, he's sort of like, he's a conservative on that side, and he's got his points, and he's saying some stuff and interesting. Oh, no, he's fucking insane. he's absolutely fucking out of his mind. We need to stop listening to him. He's dangerous. And it turns out that, yeah, Jordan Peterson's an extremely dangerous person. But we're not going to get our act together. Like, it's not going to happen, right? The United States is just going to pump as much oil as it possibly can. It's going to continue going to war as often as it can because it's lost its mind. It's Looney Tunes. It's going to happen under Joe Biden too. And so we, the people, are just going to have to accept the consequences, right? We're just going to have to start dealing with it as we can. If you have the capability to start your own garden, start it now. Now. Start it today, right? Begin planning over this winter. Start doing it now. Because if you don't, there's just going to come a point where you're going to have to do it, right? And would you rather start doing it now and figure out how to do it and make your mistakes when you got a little bit of leeway, or do you want to start gardening when am I going to eat tomorrow? So you decide that one. You figure that one out. We're just going to have to accept that there's just going to be power outages. We're just going to have to accept the power is going to become something that most people are not going to have access to any longer. We're just going to have to accept that, like, we're using computers and computing systems. That's going to end to a large degree, right? Businesses will just revert back to using pen and paper, right? Like, they'll have to. There isn't going to be a power solution. And the society is going to descend towards fascism, really. Like, people like Joe Biden are not going to move away from fascism, right? And all it's going to do is vomit out another Trump-like figure, right? Who is, Trump is a fascist, right? But he's obvious. He's overtly fascist. So it's easy to kind of say, okay, we need to stop with fascism, like the direct, overt fascism. But the next fascist will be more subtle about it, right? Have a better PR campaign. Be less likely to alienate people, right? The next just absolute crazy fascist, and we won't put some of us will, but people won't put two and two together until, like, the bombs are dropping, or until there's, like, whole populations that, well, too bad. And knowing American history, it'll be the black and brown populations. It'll be the Latinos and the Americans, right? I mean, for God's sakes, they poison their water supplies and they don't give a shit at all, right? Like, we're facing down the barrel of a gun here, and we need to actually take action, right? And in America, the only way that it's going to actually resolve itself at all is through full-scale revolution. It's going to require full-scale revolution because electoral politics are not going to resolve it. It will require, I think it will require 5 million people to surround the White House. I think that's what it'll require. Anything less, and I think the military is going to just mop it up, just deal with it. It's going to require a full-scale occupation of the White House. That's what it will require. Anything less than that, nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change. Like, you're not going to be able to take over one of the parties. Like, they have systems to be able to prevent that kind of shit. They've got their super delegates. They've got all that kind of stuff. They're not going to bow or kowtow, right? They know how to deal with people trying to take over their party. They're going to keep it a two-party system, and the oligarchy has bought it, right? The idea that America is a democracy at all is a joke, right? It is an oligarchy with this vague appearance of a democracy. And if you buy into the idea that democratic politics in the United States is going to resolve anything, you're a chump. Pure and simple, you're a chump. Like, no, it's going to be a revolution. And we're going to see it in our lifetime. We're going to see an attempt anyway. Okay, that's the end of me, guys. Good luck out there. Start your prepping now. Start your planning now. It's going to happen. One way or another, whether we like it or not. It's going to happen. All right. Good luck.